everyone and welcome back to the FPL Family YouTube channel. It is Jammy Pick day, so today we are going to be looking at the Jammy Picks for Game Week 8. Remember, Jammy Picks are differential players owned by 5% or under of the game, players that I think are going to have a really good week and players that therefore could boost you up those mini leagues and of course that all important overall rank. Now, just to recap on last week's Jammy Pick was Ollie Watkins, who got 6 points having scored that goal against Spurs at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium that week. But one of the other options for Jammy Picks last week was Raul Jimenez from Wolves. Of course, got 2 assists in that game week, registered 10 points. So if you bought one of those 2 in, actually quite a successful week for the Jammy Picks last time around. Now this week I've got 4 potential options for Jammy Picks in Game Week 8. These are them. So let's start then at the bottom with Neal Maupay. Owned by 3.8% of the game, 6.5 million he is going to cost you. So relatively cheap when it comes to filling that forward position. Now, Maupay, over the course of the season so far, as you would expect, has the highest XG and XGI across that Brighton team, and he's had 8 goal attempts over the course of the season. But what's really interesting is actually that 5 of those goal attempts have come in the last 2 game weeks, and 2 of those have come from inside the box, and 1 of those was a big chance. Those 5 attempts that he's had in the last 2 game weeks have been level pegging with Cristiano Ronaldo, but also popular FPL options like Tony and Jimenez and Lukaku are in that same kind of category at the moment. So he is a player that I think could have potential, particularly when you look at the opposition, of course, coming up against Norwich next. Now, that Norwich defence, goodness me, conceded 35 shots on target. Only Leeds and Newcastle have conceded more than they have, as well as registering an XGC, an expected goals conceded, of 13.53. So good opportunities for Maupay in this game. Now, sticking with the forwards for a moment, going from one extreme to the other when it comes to prices, next to him sits Harry Kane, 12.1 million, and he's bang on the Jammy Pick number. Any more owners and I might not have been able to pick him. He's currently owned by 5% of the game. Now, Kane was 7th for XG underachievers in Game Week 7, as well as being top for shots with 6, 4 of which were on target. Harry Kane's an interesting one because, of course, coming up against a Newcastle side that we kind of don't really know what to expect from them. As I mentioned before, one of the only 2 teams that have conceded more shots on target than Norwich have so far this season. Obviously, they've had the takeover during this international break. We're yet to see what kind of impact that will have. At the moment of recording, Steve Bruce is still their manager, and we haven't had any indication that that's not going to be the case ahead of the game week. So let's see where Newcastle are going into that one. Kane does have a relatively good record against teams like Newcastle, so I would expect him to come out. Now, we've seen some real improvement from him, obviously, over the last couple of game weeks, been significantly better in terms of his positioning on the pitch, his shots, as well as seeing some good stuff from him whilst playing for England over this international break. Now, I am recording this prior to the England game, therefore there could be some possibility of risk here with Harry Kane, but I do think he could be a really nice differential. And how often do you get to call Harry Kane against one of the poorest defences in the league a differential? Not very. Up above Harry Kane then is Phil Foden. Phil Foden is owned by just 2% of the game and he's going to cost you 7.9 million. Now, Phil Foden is one of those players that historically I've always kind of avoided. Not because I don't like Foden, actually the complete opposite. I think Foden is an incredibly talented player, but the pep roulette has always worried me. Now, he made an appearance in Game Week 5, got like 17 minutes, but then since then has started both Game Week 6 and Game Week 7. Across those 2 matches, he was 2nd for goal attempts. Both of those were big chances. Sorry, he had 2 goal attempts. Both of those were big chances. He was 6th for midfielders for XA across those 2 game weeks, across every midfielder in the Premier League, as well as being the top City midfielder for both XG and XGI across those 2 game weeks too. Coming up against a Burnley side, and actually this is a Jammy Pick that you could have as Jammy Pick this week, next week, the week after. Burnley, Brighton, Palace are their fixtures. Looking likely, in my opinion, that Foden is going to start. He is one of their most explosive potential options, is in all the right places, and with so many creative players in that Manchester City side, I can see Foden getting some really good goal opportunities over the next couple of game weeks. He is a player not only that I think could be a really nice jammy pick, but that I'm also thinking about investing in when it comes to my actual FPL team too. And finally up there then we have Roberto Firmino. Like Foden, also owned by just 2% of the game. Going to cost you that little bit more though. He comes in at 8.8 million, so going to be a bit of an investment to get there. But there's a few reasons I like Firmino. Obviously he's been out through injury, and that has meant that he hasn't travelled with Brazil. So he hasn't been away on international duty, has remained with Liverpool, has therefore had a couple of weeks off. At the same time, Jota has been away on international duty, but has been sent back early as a result of the issues that he has got. So puts a little bit of a downer on his ability to start and makes it increasingly likely that Roberto Firmino will do the same. Now, I know what you're going to say. It's not yet Christmas. You only ever pick Roberto Firmino at Christmas, and that does put me off a little bit, as does the fact that Watford have a new manager. But much like with Newcastle, when we don't really know the impact that the new owners are going to have yet, we won't really see the impact of Ranieri, I don't think, straight away. We did have a bit of a blip against Liverpool last time that they played each other. Obviously saw doing things against Liverpool that meant they lost the game, but not only that, obviously didn't return any FPL points for us as managers. So I think there will be a little bit of revenge out there for Liverpool. The one thing that puts me off, as always, is it's the 12:30 kickoff on Saturday, but I do think Roberto Firmino could be a really nice differential if you are wildcarding and want to take a little bit of a chance. He might be a nice option, although it's going to be a struggle to fit him into your teams, both in terms of his position and how secure that is, depending on what we hear about Diego Jota over the next few days, but also in terms of that price point. It's a really difficult price point to budget for, and therefore that kind of explains why he's only owned by 2% of the game. All four of these, I think, have the potential to have excellent game weeks in Game Week 8. They all have a really nice fixture with the potential to return big FPL points, and that is why they're all attacking players this week, because whilst I think there could be some defences out there, Manchester City, for example, who do really well, these guys could offer some really nice differential points, particularly if you are wildcarding and you want to take a few chances, if you like, few teams that are, offering you something a little bit different rather than sticking with that wildcard template that we are starting to see coming out now. Of course, as always on these videos, we do have to have just one of them as this week's jammy pick, and this time around I'm going with the Manchester City boy, so it's going to be Phil Foden for me. I think what we have seen from him over the last two starts that he has had have been not only really good quality performances, particularly against Liverpool in Game Week 7. He was phenomenal, I thought, in that game. Made a real difference to that Manchester City attack going forward. Not that they've been bad before, but I thought he really strengthened them even more so. Not only that, I really like the fixture, and I think that fixture against Burnley is primed for some attacking returns. We always see that kind of 5-0 rhetoric that goes around. Foden looks likely to be part of that. Obviously, is a little bit of a rotation risk because isn't everybody that plays for Manchester City in terms of that Pep roulette, but he seems to have recovered well from his injury, and I suspect that he will keep his place in the starting lineup for Game Week 8. So Phil Foden is my jammy pick for this week. What do you think? Who is your jammy pick for this week? Remember, they have to be owned by under 5% of FPL managers to qualify as a jammy pick. Let me know in the comments below who you think is going to be the jammiest pick of Game Week 8, who is going to help you to get up those mini leagues and who is going to help bolster your overall rank by the end of this week. If you haven't done so already, please hit that subscribe button so you're notified every time we go live, every time we release a video on the channel. And if you've enjoyed this video, please hit the like button. I'll be back on Thursday with my top points picks for the week. Remember, those are the players in each of the positions that I think will be the highest scoring for the upcoming game week. And there will also be a premiums video coming out probably on Wednesday, but it might slip to Friday, which will look at the premium options if you are wildcarding in particular and which of them you should be investing in. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll be back later on in the week. Take care.